The murder occurred on the Potter's New Extension Main Road in an apartment complex owned by Steve Parker between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. When our news team arrived on the scene, members of the Criminal Investigations Department were already there carrying out their probe.
On the 29th August 2018, what began as an ordinary day quickly turned into a day filled with confusion and pain. In an apartment in Potter's Village, neighbors were disturbed by the sound of a commotion going on in one of the apartments in the complex. This did not alarm the neighbors at this time, as this was something that had been going on for the past few days. However, over those days, the commotion became louder and more frequent. On days leading up to this moment, neighbors could hear loud arguments and what sounded like stamping feet and things being thrown coming from the apartment located on the top floor of the two-story complex. This is where Timothy Jackman and his partner, Angel, lived. Neighbors noticed that during this commotion between Timothy and Angel, Angel was packing her belongings and loading them into a van that waited outside. Sometime during this moment of taking items from the apartment to the van, Angel returned to the apartment with Timothy. This was the last time Angel would leave the apartment alive. Timothy Jackman was later charged and convicted for the murder of Fitzroy Joseph, who was a beloved member of the LGBTQ community and went by the name Angel. Timothy Jackman grew up in a single-parent household with his mother, who he had a close relationship with. At the age of 11, Timothy experienced something that no child should ever have to experience. A male who he knew as his neighbor did the unthinkable. He was molested. From the information provided, it seems as though Timothy never told anyone about this traumatic experience that he had. He would struggle with the thoughts and shame, especially when he would encounter the person that did this to him. At the age of 17, Timothy's mother passed away, and this affected him negatively. He was devastated. In 2016, Timothy was introduced to Angel by a mutual friend, and from there a relationship was ignited. However, this relationship was said to be volatile and filled with arguments and fights. Friends and relatives of both Timothy and Angel have reported seeing them with bruises about their bodies, suggesting that the relationship was abusive. Timothy described Angel as being very jealous and controlling, that she monitored everything he did. He could not have friends and he had to go from home to work and back home. He stated that sometime between 2016 and 2017, he made a report at the police station about an incident between him and Angel that resulted in him being stabbed by Angel in the neck and chest and had to be treated at the hospital. However, from the account of Angel's mother, it is stated that Timothy was the abusive one in the relationship. On the 29th of August 2018, before 7 a.m., neighbors could hear the couple in the apartment upstairs in a heated argument. One neighbor reported that they could hear Timothy's voice very loudly and Angel's seemed to be very calm, even though the argument was filled with indecent and abusive language. The neighbor goes on to state that they heard Timothy saying, "If you don't leave the house, you will be dead." During this time, Angel is seen removing what seems to be her belongings in garbage bags from the apartment into a van waiting outside. Around 9:50 a.m., another neighbor stated that while Angel was moving her items into the van, she noticed Angel saying something to Timothy and then saw Timothy pulling Angel back into the apartment. 20 minutes had passed and Timothy emerged from the apartment looking frightened. He went to the driver of the van, who was still waiting outside, and said, "I just killed Angel," that he needed a ride to the police station to turn himself in. Shortly after driving off to the station, Timothy realized he had forgotten his cell phone and asked the driver to go back. When he left to retrieve his phone, the driver unpacked Angel's items from the van and drove off, leaving Timothy to ask one of his neighbors for a ride to the police station. After confessing to the police that he had killed his girlfriend, Timothy was taken into custody. Timothy explains that he and his girlfriend got into an argument because she wanted to leave. During the argument, he says that she picked up a knife and they started to struggle as he tried to get the knife from her because he believed she would have stabbed him. He goes on to say that he got the knife from Angel, then she punched him in his stomach, and there is where he threw a stab at her and it landed in her neck. Angel died by bleeding to death as a result of the stab wound. In 2020, Timothy, who was extremely remorseful and also apologized to Angel's mother, was sentenced to 11 years and 9 months for his crime. In June of 2024, Timothy Jackman was released from prison due to a miscalculation of his sentence. He had started his life over from scratch, but this was short-lived as he was rearrested and taken back to prison due to an error that was made by the judge of the case. Timothy Jackman was to be sentenced for 112 months, which is 9 years, 3 months, and a few days, and June 2024 would have been his earliest release date. It took them 6 years to realize that a mistake was made, and the warrant for his sentence was written for 11 years and 9 months instead of 9 years and 3 months. Timothy will now need to be in prison until 2026, which is his next earliest release date due to the error that was made. This was the case of Timothy Jackman.